Welcome everyone to the podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ross. Now, uh, in the world of the automotive service provider, obviously, entrepreneurialism, is really at the forefront. It's right adjacent to technical and repair proficiency. Uh, and from time to time, a business would like to increase the amount of money that they make, right? But what's the smart way to do it? You go kind of off in all directions, adding different features, functions, and whatever else. Is it the new extra crispy chicken,
Yes.
or is it something else that is even farther afield from what you're doing? So here to talk about that is Murray Voth from RPM Training. Murray, welcome to the podcast again. It's been a little bit since we've been in these opposing chairs.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. Yes, it has. But I think the holiday season was probably a feature of that. And busy season there. I've got two relatively new grandkids, so I'm becoming that distracted grandfather, right? So that's part of it. So, but it's good to be back. Speaking of all of this, and you said the crispy chicken. I want you to know, I've been to a shop in Canada where they had it was a gas station shop, and they had chicken that they served at lunch, fried chicken, deep fryer, and one of the technicians would just change gloves and fry the chicken. True story. This
That
is
seems
real.
to be,
Now I don't know,
again, a really great anecdote and speaks to
but
exactly what I kind of wanted
it's
to
just
talk to you about is, how far from your core of what you do does it make sense? Um, like
yeah.
there's a tax office in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia that, also will regrip your golf clubs. Uh,
Yeah. Yes,
oh,
right, that kind of
Uh,
thing.
I don't, you don't
Yeah.
actually have to make this stuff up. You can kind of see how, tax season gets light in certain times, and tax season is done in April. Well, to keep busy, maybe you'll regrip your golf clubs too.
Yeah.
But, for an auto shop that really wants to see business all year round, uh, uh, doing your taxes while you wait or something sounds like a bridge too far.
I think so. Yes. Well, and one more anecdote, dealing with a client, coaching client years and years and years ago. He was all caught up on a day with arguing with the gumball dispenser guy and the vending machine guy in his waiting area.
Right,
And I just wanted to go in there and grab all of that and just throw it out on the street,
right, right.
right? Like, who buys gumballs? I don't know. Like, yeah, but I can get $45 a month from the guy. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so let's talk about this before we get off the rails. Um, Free market economy, capitalism, business is sales, sell. We track sales. Occasionally you will read an article in business where a multi-billion-dollar company goes broke. They had billions of dollars in sales, but somehow now they're in receivership, or now they're going through Chapter 11 or whatever they're going through. And when you look at a graph of information, sales continue to climb, but the costs involved to get those sales surpass the sales. And so there's something that they have missed. It's called gross profit. I've worked with shop owners. One guy was the hero of his community, 2.5 million in sales, and he was taking money out of his RSPs in December to make payroll, right? So he was pushing sale. So in my context with my clients, to not to sound disparage sales, is do get gross profit, because gross profit does two things. It pays your fixed expenses, and then what's left over from your fixed expenses is your net. So focus on gross profit. Then when you take a look at gross profit, take a look at your common categories. As you guys know, I use the word service instead of labor. So just a reminder to our listeners, if they're new to us, we have service, we have parts, we have materials and consumables, which some people call shop supplies. Then we have accessories in some locations. We have tires and wheels. We have sublet. These are the common categories that we measure in our coaching practice. All right. Now, over the years, I've watched people get into other things because they weren't making enough money. We talked about U-Haul before we started the meeting, right? U-Haul franchise, or they start selling cars on the side. and things like that. And then what ends up happening is they actually don't know where their gross profit comes from, and so they're not really managing where the most opportunity is. Just let me finish a little bit of a diatribe here, then we'll go and just break it down a little bit. So the idea here is understanding, our model, understanding what is it that we primarily do, focusing on the gross profit that generates that, and then begin to look at where there might be other opportunities. So, for example, our philosophy is trying to be a one-stop shop, if possible, for your clients, right? The idea that they have to go to one place for tires, one place for brakes, one place for electrical, that was a whole franchise thing that happened in the 70s and the 80s that really, I think, we need to break away from, because the clientele that I think that truly are great clients to deal with and are the ones that are contribute to a good gross profit are the ones that want to be looked after, right? The whole health of the car. So then we look at things like, are we collecting proper for our labor, for our service, right? Are our parts margins good? So are we getting the gross profit on those? Are we charging a fair market rate for our materials and consumables, all right? And once we're charging properly for those, then we can take a look at other areas. So for example, sublet. I look at that number and I see it quite large with a new client or growing with a client. And I say, what is it that you're doing there? Well, I'm subletting all of my alignments, or I sublet my tires, or I sublet my exhaust or my windshields, right? And then we do some math on, is it make sense to buy an alignment machine or whatever, get into that product,
Right.
ADAS being the most modern thing coming in, where now more and more of my clients, as they need to upgrade their alignment equipment, are buying the machines that do both, right? The dual machines that do both, and getting the training and begin to have that offering in their place, right? Air conditioning is another one. Do you do it or don't you do it, right? So the idea is rather than look at all these other things that might be fun, it might be fun to have freshly fried chicken. It might be fun to do taxes for somebody. It might be fun to, I know of a shop that sharpens skates.
Okay, sure.
Right?
This is Canada, eh? Why not?
Well, the family were all figure skaters. The kids were competitive figure skaters. And I think came out of necessity for why pay somebody else to do it, and just why don't we do it for our own kids' skates? And next thing you know, they're doing it for other people, right? And that's fine. Well, no, it is what it is, right? We're Canada. I mean, how more Canadian is it than to sharpen skates at a shop? But one more thing, Andrew, then I'll let you respond. So here's I think where part of this comes from. You see, the service station model or the new car dealer model involved multiple streams of revenue and multiple streams of gross profit. So I'm going to go to service station because I'm an old garage man, right? We had service, we had parts, we had the rest of it, but I also had fuel, I had oil, I had car wash, I had convenience store. Within the convenience store, that's where the shops began to gravitate to the chicken. I never did. We had sandwiches, dairy products and stuff like that, all the tobacco stuff back in the day, right? So our business model evolved with all those things contributing to our gross profit. I mean, the oil companies had it pretty dialed in by the time I left in 2005, right? We got paid a commission on the fuel. We paid them a commission on the car wash. We paid them a commission on the convenience store. Like, they had it all figured out, right? Just dialed it right in.
Yep.
So now imagine, and I never had the opportunity to do this, but imagine if we closed down the service station and just left the bays on my property. Right? Which is a common thing. You see shops like this all across Canada that are former service stations that are now just shops. Now take away all the gross profit from fuel, oil, and all the rest of it, and now you're just left with parts, service, and the rest of it. You can see, and your expenses didn't go down. You still have the same rent, right? This is where the industry did not pay attention to the gross profit opportunity because we were stuck in that old model. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, getting people to understand, getting the gross profit with what we have to do on cars today. So.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that strikes me, I mean, that's kind of a funny anecdote to me anyway, about frying chicken in your shop, is it feels like something nice to do, but then so do you hire a really great tech? Or do you hire a really great fry cook? you probably don't have enough to have somebody just dedicated. But what skills, do you have your 310S? But also we
Mhm.
need to make sure that you know your way around a deep fryer. I
Yeah.
mean, like what? Um, I suppose you could go around to the other, fast food places and say, we can train you up to be a
Yeah.
tech, or maybe the other way around. But it feels like it's a bit far afield. I mean, again, uh, everybody, can, uh, everybody can, realize that uh, do whatever they want, with their business. I mean, it's
Well,
far
yeah,
be it
and I
from
don't. Yeah.
a right
S-
or a wrong way. Uh,
Yes.
but, uh, the fact is that at some point you're going to lose focus. And if you lose focus, as you say, you don't really know where your money's coming from or where it's going.
Yeah.
And it can be really,
Yeah.
detrimental to your business. I mean, nobody's got a whole lot of extra business or money these days, right? I mean, you want to make
Yeah.
sure where all the dollars and dimes are coming,
Yeah.
and be able to focus on building that, which is kind of what the inspiration for this whole episode was. Is like, how do you do it the smart way? What's the yes, gross profit, but how do you make? I've got it at a certain threshold here. How do I improve it?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is, first of all, measuring it, breaking out the categories and measuring it. So separating the different streams and finding out what the benchmarks or best practices are for that number. And then, of course, we can do a whole series of episodes on the different tools and approaches we take to help improve it. Right. The a very a story that starts very stressfully and then I think ends up, quite nicely. And I'm very proud of this. Years ago, I was asked to consult on site at a location. I don't do that anymore just because I like staying at home now. But anyways, I was hired to consult, and whenever I did that, I would sit down with management or owners and say, so what are the key pain points, and where can I focus my analysis? Sometimes it was just an overall overview of the business. I had a sort of a 50-page questionnaire for the whole place. In this case, they told me, we have all these sales in our company, and we're not making any money, and the banks are beginning to knock at the door. So I said, good, let's, give me 5 years worth of balance sheets and income statements. And I sat in an office for the first part of the day, and they sold a lot of cars. They had evolved. It happened naturally. They started with one, started with two. Next thing you know, years later, now they're selling 30 cars a month, right? It became a big focus. I did all the math and sat down, and I realized that in the last fiscal year that I had, the when I did the numbers and broke it all apart, the shop had made, a net profit of 7-8 grand, not great, but it had been profitable. And the car sales lost $30,000.
Right.
And that was the commission to the one family member who was selling the cars. So very proud to say that after that analysis, I was on a CC thread in emails with both the banker, the owner, their accountant for about 6 months till they got it all turned around and fixed up.
Right.
Right.
Right. What did
And
they end up doing? Did they keep selling cars and just change how they were doing it, or did they
just changed how they were doing it? They just tracked each item separately. They turned inventory. Because in the car world, I don't know a lot about it. I mean, I would never claim an expertise in how to sell cars. I just learned through that process that, banks loan you money on used cars, but then they depreciate that car. So in 90 days, they're going to call that note on that car. So if you've got lot rot, you got cars sitting there for a year, you're losing money, right? So,
right.
So they went and got training on how to sell cars from people that know that stuff and how to buy cars better, like at the auctions and stuff. They got that piece. And then the shops, they're doing amazing business today, right? They just needed information. They're smart, hardworking people, right?
Yep. Yeah,
So
well, that's it. And sometimes, I mean, we've
yeah.
talked kind of around that topic. You can't be an expert on everything, and
Mm-hmm.
it's smarter to admit that early on,
Yeah.
than find out later the hard way. It sounds to me a little bit like somebody forgot about the commission side of that equation too. It's like, well, we bought the car for this much, we did this much work to it, we sold it for this much. Surely we must have made money.
Well, Yeah. So the other thing that happens, just as a note for anybody listening, and I've currently got two clients that have really nice used car lots, whatever they're properly called these days, and they have a mechanical shops, and but they follow the proper principles. The sales department buys a car at the auction, it comes into the mechanical shop, is inspected, and whatever it needs, it's repaired at retail.
Okay.
And then it's sold off of what they had to pay that shop to get it up to speed, up to snuff. And so then if the car needs way too much money into it, then that means the buyer didn't make a very good decision, right? So don't, but what ends up happening is the service department says, well, give me a deal. Give me the parts it costs and just give me a deal on the labor. Well, next thing you know, now you've hit the gross profit on your service side, right? So it's just splitting it and understanding it, right? I tell my clients now, especially the ones that are more sort of more mature, I tell them, this is implied legal and ethical and moral. I don't care where your gross profit comes from, but here's what you need.
Right.
Right. If you want to give away your tires, give them away. But you're still going to need this much gross profit in your business to end up with a 20% net. It doesn't really work well to give your tires away, but we can play a bit with that. Now, you brought up in our chat, sort of our green room chat, and yes, folks, we have a green room.
It's not actually green. It looks exactly like what you see behind us right now.
It's virtual.
Yes.
Mine's covered by a green screen.
Yes.
We were talking about car count, which is another natural thing that business owners want, is volume, right? Get more in the door. And that can create a whole nother set of problems in our industry, because when you have too much volume, you don't capture gross profit on the high volume things that you bring people in for. So, for example, at best, an oil change, a maintenance service, is break even. Usually it's a loss, right? At best, a winter tire changeover is break even, maybe a little bit of gross profit on it, right? So then what you do is you have shops turning over all these invoices with no profit on them, in the hopes that they might catch a brake job, catch a set of tires, catch some exhaust, catch some belts, catch an engine or whatever, and get some gross profit, from that piece. We're now looking at it per car now, gross profit and net profit. We're even looking at gross profit per hour in our consulting practice, right? What is your blend of everything that you do? What are you generating in gross profit per hour? And then that also then determines, the kind of business you attract as well, right? So in the case of shops that come to us with a lot of car count, a lot of this high volume stuff, we get them to start combining services. So things like phoning up the winter tire changeover people ahead of time to pre-book them, looking if they're due for an oil change, and doing those two things together. And now the technician only has to drive that vehicle in one time, right? That's a starting point there.
So it's building some real efficiency there, right?
Right. And then with other shops, we begin to look at, you know what? I'm going to stop doing weed eaters. I'm going to stop doing snow blowers. I'm going to stop doing all small engines and see what that does for my business. And boom, next thing you know, they're more profitable. Other people who are in the tire world might say, you know what? I'm going to stop doing, equipment tire, like, landscaping equipment tires and stuff like that. This is an area that I stopped doing. We used to, being a service station, you fixed anything that with rubber on it, and we just began to make rules. Like, nope, you got to go to one of our good tire competitors for that kind of a tire, right? So, I tease my clients about, do they work on 1980s motorhomes?
Right.
Because, if you're equipped for it and you charge properly for it, it can be a nice income stream. But if you're not equipped for it and your technicians hate working on them, and the people that are coming in with these old motorhomes don't have any money, that's a different kind of a conversation, right? So,
right.
So it's almost like looking at a specialization to a degree, right?
Yeah. I mean, I look at it and I think, it's really a question of being really, really customer centric and seeing what does the customer want? Not what does my business need? What can I deliver to the customer without having to add, a whole, people, for sure, maybe some training, absolutely, but not a whole lot of kind of new areas of expertise. Certainly, if I'm adding, You had mentioned glass earlier. There's certification and training that if it's a kind of a program offered by, an organization, they'll be able to provide that. It's not, you're not going to lose people for a month, to do that. But, obviously you want it to be done right. ADAS, you mentioned, obviously there's training involved there and some expense for the equipment. But if it's evolving and it's a natural organic thing that makes a lot of sense, it's hard to imagine just because you get, and I hate to harp on this again, just because you have some of your customers show up at the shop hungry, that you should start feeding them chicken.
Well,
but you can have things. You can have things.
Well, here's something here. Let's digress a minute. I try to teach all of my clients, never give away what you do.
Right.
So in other words, referral programs, if you bring me a new customer, I'm going to give you a free oil change and that new customer a free oil change and get them in the door, right? No. Don't give away what you do. If you do want to give something away, buy a Skip the Dishes gift card, buy a DoorDash gift card, buy a Starbucks or a Timmy's gift card, right? Or if you make a mistake in the business, right? When we want to give the client something back as an I'm sorry, I mean, sometimes it's appropriate to discount the bill or take something off because it was a mistake that we made, whatever. So we want to make it right with our client. My favorite story recently was of a shop due to delays for various reasons, and they forgot to communicate with the client. Vehicle wasn't ready, and it was their anniversary night, and they had booked at a very exclusive restaurant that's really hard to get into. And they missed their reservation because of the car situation, right? I mean, we're talking a real hullabaloo, right? Anyways, the shop owner thought about what had happened, and they talked about it, and they wanted to say they're sorry. They actually, through some connections, rebooked that appointment for them and gave them like a $300 gift card to that restaurant for a anniversary 2.0, right? Yeah. Now imagine the chatter in that family. $300 back on a brake job that went sideways or a vehicle was delayed is like whatever, but $300 dinner at whatever that place you and I went to in Sudbury, MIT. Right? Like that's just so heartwarming, and that really makes a difference.
I believe
right?
It was the Made in Canada restaurant. The
correct, MIC. Yes, I could not remember the last digit. So
very nice old fashioned.
Oh, very nice. Great restaurant, great service. Anyways, so that's another example of make gross profit through all of your different income categories. If you want to do a gift or marketing or a referral thank you, use some gross profit, budget for it. We work with some of these numbers and begin to give people some rewards for their loyalty to you that don't involve discounting what you do, right?
Right.
Other professions do not discount what they do, right? But they might give you a gift. So for example, I've referred our mortgage broker over the years to people, and when they've landed a deal, we've gotten a pretty substantial coffee card, right?
Nice.
From that. So that's pretty sweet, right?
You're not getting a break on your interest rate at the bank.
Correct. Right. Or the commission that they got from the bank for getting the mortgage or whatever, right?
The last mortgage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
So just kind of bring it back home. It sounds like if you keep your eye on what the customer, because your customers collectively might need, but maybe they're getting somewhere else, that you can kind of consolidate it into your business, with always an eye to, can I make a profit? Can I take whatever that costs to provide that service and make add profit onto it?
Yes.
On a consistent basis. And that's kind of the measure, right? I mean, not just whether the customer is going to use it, but can I do it profitably? Because you might run into situations, as we all have, where it's being something done by somebody else and another organization, and they can do it at a price that you could never come close to. So that's all we got. Do it for profit. Build your business the smart way. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Murray. Talk to you all soon.
You're listening to the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast, brought to you by the publishers of Indie Garage and Jobber Nation. Connect with us online at indiegarage.ca and jobbernation.ca, a brand of Chat Integrated Media.